Time to get inspired. Time to start the week off, on a happy, motivational, point, if we can, if it's possible in this day and age in Kenya. Welly Odendo joining me here.
Thank you.
Remember, if you have any questions, comments as we are discussing this issue, you can go ahead and tweet at Citizen TV Kenya at Joey_Mutengi using the hashtag Daybreak. You can also SMS us on 22422. This morning, we're talking about getting ready for the next chapter. Yeah. So maybe we can just start off with the signs that you're perhaps ready for a new chapter. What are some of those signs? When do you know that in your spirit it's right to move on?
I think one of the major signs that you begin to feel a sense of unsettlement in what you used to be comfortable in. The normal begins to feel abnormal. The routine begins to feel like a bit of a drag. That is a sign that probably you've outgrown the current phase or the current season of life you're in, and you need to transition to the next. Unfortunately, because life becomes a big and a great repeat mode where you get to that feeling, and then because you don't have either the tools, the skills, or the courage to break out of what has defined you, you are normal, you retrogress and you go back and you remain in the cycle
to where it's comfortable,
because normally we don't like stretching, we don't like starting up at a new thing, because you have again to apply yourself, you have again to go through the whole process of mastering a new climate and a new environment. So I think that's one of the major signs that you begin to feel, this used to be, I would do this Friday, Saturday, now I cannot do it Friday, Saturday, now it's too much. I would do this was my routine, this is how every evening it had to be from this group, it had to be this kind of thing, and now it no longer leaves me with that sense of fulfillment that I used to derive from that. So that is the telltale signs that probably you have exhausted the sugar cane.
Right. So we're talking, I mean, just even boredom in general.
Yeah.
Like you're waking up, you have no motivation to do anything, no passion, you're constantly frustrated. And as you're saying, that's something that you used to enjoy and now not so much. Day-to-day life, of course, we encounter frustrations on very many levels.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between just regular day-to-day frustration versus now it's time to move on?
Over-reliance on motivation. If you find yourself, you're addicted to motivation, that is a sign that you have not matured. Because the role of motivation is to bring you to the place where you can now take up your own limbs and live out the decisions that you have seen are progressive to who you are. But when you find you're over-reliant on motivation, you keep relapsing and you keep getting somebody to talk you back into, oh, but we've talked about this, then that's a sign that probably what you're dealing with here is not that you are, frustration is when you are trying to conquer something or break a limit, and it's not as easy as you envisioned it to be. But there's a sense of complacency where you find that as long as I know there's somebody in my life who will always talk me positive, let me use this mommy figure, or mommy figure in your life will talk you positive and make you feel the best about you, even in your worst behavior, then you begin to be overly reliant on motivation. And if you remain overly reliant on motivation, you're going to get addicted to false praise, which eventually will bring you into constant problems. Yep.
So what lands people in that place of having lost your passion, or having no passion for something that you used to find enjoyable? What types of factors go into that?
The major one is losing and not finding closure with who you are. Life is full of changes to be made, and these changes are manifestations of choices and exposures that you get. As you get overly exposed to something, you begin to want to challenge it, and then when you challenge it and conquer it and you begin to live out the new life, a part of us begins to miss how life was when things were easier. And wanting to recreate what was easier and normal for you keeps you in that place where you begin to feel like this thing has taken more from me than it has given to me. I get to work with people who are in the limelight, and they worked so hard to get there. Then when they get there, they work so hard to not be seen, because now wanting to find a place where you can just be alone becomes almost impossible. And now they begin to suffer the inner loneliness of the public life, whereby you have to look, we expect you to be happy all the time, we expect you to be strong all the time, we expect you to be wise all the time, we expect everything about you to be as perfect as it is. You're never supposed to have a bad day, bad breath, bad hair, bad nothing. You're supposed to just be this idea. So you start living for an idea that even you yourself puts you under undue pressure. So you lose the sense of humanity. And so that is what makes us to lose our passion, because you feel, if I just lose out on this a little bit, I'll be able to regain some level of peace and freedom and joy that nobody feels that if I'm not in my best, they can exploit it. If I meet you crying in the streets, I get that picture, I can exploit it. But people cry in the streets every day. It doesn't add anything to anyone. But for somebody who are in the public light, I'm speaking for those in the public light, if they are found crying in the street, that's news by itself. That's opportunity. That's something that can be exploited. So we build a cocoon around us, and we begin to miss the days you could just have normal grief, normal joy, normal family time. That makes you to be lonely, and you want to go back, and you just lose the energy and the motivation to keep going.
When you talk about, taking the next step or moving forward, a lot of it is a mental, state of mind, that you have to be in the right frame of mind to take that step. It could be that circumstances in life have led you or pushed you to the edge, but mentally, how do you get ready for that? How do you make sure that your mind and emotional, state is ready?
You have to fight procrastination. Time does not impose change. Time only rewards the choices that you made towards change. The mental commitment you give to yourself that, hey, as we say, that all change begins in the mind. As you begin to embrace that, I actually need to start adopting a new set of rules for my new way, or for the new place that I want to be. For many of us, we live in a lot of procrastination, so that we always say, am I ready for this thing? No. Why? Because you have to break a habit to form a new one. And to break a habit, you have to break out of a community that facilitated that habit to be there. So breaking away is what is going to hurt you the most. And so you feel, the habit is easier, the community is harder. Breaking away from the community that facilitated the nurturing and the environment for this habit, they will feel I have betrayed them, they'll feel I have changed, they'll feel I'll do that. So we keep procrastinating because you always feel like I'm betraying somebody. And so we end up betraying ourselves throughout our lives, because we don't want to feel as though people will think I made a choice, because we want the choice to be collective. Like, I've seen friends turn on one another because one of them got married, and they were all saying, these men are dogs and all this. And then one of them dates and gets married, and they start feeling, it'll last, and then it lasts, and then they start saying, the husband has thin legs or something. So they always pick on something, because if you cease from procrastinating, then it means that you stop betraying yourself. You begin to do what is necessary immediately. Because if you sacrifice the ultimate for the immediate, you will never get to the ultimate. So you have to ask yourself consistently, I have to live my life backwards. I have to live my life from the grave coming back, so that when I look at myself ultimately and ask myself, what must I do to get to my ultimate state? Then I look at my immediate circumstance and surrounding, and I say, hey, these are the things I need to change, and I cannot procrastinate them. I cannot wait for motivation for me to want to make these changes. I cannot procrastinate breaking away from an association that is not propagating my journey of becoming a better person. So it is the betrayal of yourself that eventually costs you the ultimate state that you would want to realize.
I mean, there could be someone watching who feels like, I've invested so much time and so much energy into this chapter. So moving on feels like you're leaving all that behind. And, they're thinking to themselves, I don't think I can leave this behind.
Closure is the hardest. I know people say, but closure is normally the hardest because closure comes, first of all, with the acceptance phase, which takes time. After the acceptance phase, you enter the grieving phase, which takes time. After the grieving phase, you get to the adjustment phase, which takes time. And so those who want to rush that imeisha, move on, they probably have never loved anything enough or loved genuinely and found the difficulty of going through that phase, because it is not that I accept, I grieve, I adjust, and I move on. Fragments of our lives are littered all over, and we have to collect them gently and try to piece them together and try to live without a loved one. And as you're trying to accept the change that has to be made or the decision I've made, and then grieve the absence of that decision, and then adjust to living without that, it's going to take time. And that's why people procrastinate, because they feel like I don't have the emotional energy to be able to go through the entire cycle of recovering my strength to live beyond my immediate circumstance. So finding closure is the hardest, but finding closure is necessary. You have to start and put out a plan and know that I have got to go through these phases. Every day I procrastinate, I'm not making it easier. It will not be easier to grieve tomorrow. I'm repressing this thing, I'm putting it down here. And you have to know that when you see a small ice cup, there's normally a massive bag that sinks Titanics. Yeah. And that's where all these things that you've not accepted, all this grief that has not been expressed, all this adjustment that has not been made, eventually it's going to sink your biggest ships. And you are going to find when you're supposed to perform the most, that's when all these repressed emotions, repressed images of yourself, repressed choices that you're supposed to make that you have been procrastinating, they are going to bring you to a place of confronting them at a time you ought to be living free of them. And it's going to keep you in an adolescent mode for the longest time. Yeah.
There's what I call also blank canvas jitters, as in, you know, you need to make a change. You don't know exactly what the change is, and you're just kind of there like something needs to give, but I'm not quite sure the exact path to take, because that, you know, there might be someone walking into a next chapter that they're unsure of. So what would you say to that person?
I think that goes with the soul tie. When our soul is tied to something for a long, long time, when we need to break away because we don't know what the new looks like, we remain addicted and saying, well, let's wait until the new shows up. It's like a girl says, okay, I've already dumped the guy, but how will I stay single? So I can't stay single, so I have to stay in this relay. But I'm actually meeting people, I'm on my WhatsApp trying to hit on other guys and get conversations going because I'm trying to get into the new. And that's soul ties. It means that you have created an addiction to company that makes you even fear your own company. So you become tied to that. So that blank space, and we have to know this, boredom has created more and great people than preoccupation. There is the people, Isaac Newton came up with the law of gravity when he was sleeping under a tree and an apple fell on his head. He was typically bored. He didn't go to sit down and let me go and think about the law of motion. But if you are able to find and be comfortable in your own company, away from the noise, away from the ties that you have entangled yourself in, you'll begin to see that that thing you're calling the blank space, that's actually the creative space, because that is when your true self speaks to you. That is when your true voice speaks to you. That's when you know whether your inner voice is either a critic, a congratulator, a cheerleader. That's when you actually get to hear yourself. But we try to drown ourselves with preoccupation, so that we are afraid of that lapse, that moment that we'll just be alone in our own heads. And that is why we never maintain the journey of change, because at some point in that journey of change, you have to be ready for a season of loneliness. And that is a time of aloneness. And if you cannot be alone, then you cannot bear glory. Yeah.
There's also a danger of sort of going into the next chapter and replacing it with something similar as the old one, because that's where you, again, find comfort there, right? How do you avoid that danger?
You have to first of all, and that's why I say, for me, when people depend on motivation, that's why they only change characters, they maintain the script. It's still the same, because the motivation is what is keeping them in that place. Maturity dictates that the next season of your life, you must respond differently to stimulus. The stimulus, let's say probably you want to break a pity syndrome that you develop to manipulate people. That's how you manipulate your way out of everything. You develop pity, oh, you guys, you don't know what I've been through, you know, when I was 5, then when I was 9. So you just get into when I was. But now you're 36. Yes, at 9 it happened, but we cannot pay for what people did to you at 9 and find the people who did it then, or live beyond it. Now, when I say it like that, people say, but you don't know how badly I was hurt. We are not saying you are not hurt. We are saying that now you have turned the hurt as an excuse to never challenge yourself out of the mold of manipulation that now you have gotten a justifiable reason to manipulate people with. So maturity is saying that now, in the presence of the same stimulus, I will behave differently. I don't need to be motivated. I don't need my pastor to be there, my mom to be there. I don't need a Bible near me or a Quran near me. I have matured. I have developed the internal frame. I already know that for every cause, there is an effect. And so because I know the cause and the effect, I've already analyzed and seen, I have been here before. I have behaved like this before. And I have seen how it leaves me. And I cannot keep behaving like that and expecting different results. I have to break out. I have to, they've ascribed to Einstein the quote that insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So you cannot maintain yourself that, well, but now I was angry. But the results will still be the same. So maturity is being put in the same environment, same stimulus, and now you acting or reacting in a different manner. Motivation is, if somebody is there, you better calm me down, you better call my mom before I burn this place up. You need to live and learn. Even as you do this motivation Mondays, the role of motivation is not to be the supplement of maturity, the substitute of maturity. It's the supplement for the life of maturity. You have to make conscious decisions consistently that I cannot keep responding to stimuli the way I used to.
So moving forward and going into the next chapter is obviously a risk.
Yep.
And sometimes risks don't pay off. What then? Because that could encourage someone to head right back to where they were comfortable and saying, well, I took a risk, it didn't work out. Maybe next chapter isn't for me right now.
First of all, people should know that risk is a science. It's not a gut. It's not ati manzena skia. Nimebambika leo. I quit my job. I'm starting out. There's a science around risk, which maybe one of these days we should talk about it. But the most important thing is that you have to, first of all, develop the ability to trust your instincts before you take any risk. Now, you cannot trust the instinct that made you, if you listened to your instinct once and it took you 10 years, then that tells you your instinct has not been sharpened enough to analyze risk and opportunity around it. So if the reward took longer, that tells me your analysis was wrong. The premise of your analysis was wrong. So if the reward took too long, that means the premise by which you analyze what you called risk, that was not risk, that was just blind faith. You jumped because jumping was more fun. There was no guaranteed reward. You just enjoyed the thrill of the jump. There was nothing else. There was no water in the pool. You just jump. So that is the first thing. The premise of your analysis must be right before you take what you say a risk is. So you have to trust your instinct. And to trust your instinct, you have to develop it. You cannot take and trust your instinct on bigger things while you have not done small things with it. Like traffic. Try things like traffic. Should I take this road or that road? You take the service lane today, you discover, hey, my instinct is so wrong. It's a scam. So you discover my instinct has not yet developed. If it can't pick out a scam on a road, I should not trust it on bigger decisions. So that means I should get cancelled as I build the accuracy of my instinct. So you have to say things like that. Then be patient. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with the process. Don't rush it, because you have got to know where you are going. It's not like between here and there that there is no distance. They say what we call distance is speed and time together. So there has to be speed and time to cover any given distance. So be patient with yourself. Don't rush yourself too much. And then thirdly, fourthly is don't make too many at the same time. Calibrate. Right now, it's this. You're not yet at a place where you can take 5 risks simultaneously. Just calibrate yourself. Say, for now, I just want to get power over my emotions. I've not gotten to the money, I've not gotten to this. I think I'm too of an emotional wreck. I need to organize this. So I need to get power over my emotions. When I conquer my emotions, I need to start becoming more deliberate with relationships. I'll not just allow relationships to slip away. I must be conscious, I must be present in relationships and all that. So you just calibrate so that you can be able to see the progress you've made, and you don't feel overwhelmed.
Yeah. And just lastly, as we wind up here, you know, I think one of the beautiful things about the next chapter is the fact that you get to rediscover yourself, your passions, your strengths, things that, you know, you entered the last chapter with and might have sort of forgot along the way. So maybe you can just end on that note.
Well, one of the things I would like to tell people is that you're not as weak as you think. It's the lies that you've been told and you've kept telling yourself. You're not as weak as you think. There is nobody who was brought into this life to be a slave to any event or to any particular state. Sorry. So nobody. So you're not as weak as you think. It's the lies that society sells to us, people sell to us, that if you are not this, then you can never be. If you're not with us, then you're not anywhere.
Preach,
those simple lies that you start living with them, they keep you like, you end up becoming a property rather than a person, an entity of creativity and all these things. So you have to know you're not as weak as any person or anything makes you feel. Starting means you'll have to start small, but just because it's small doesn't mean it won't grow. The fear of small should not keep you from not starting. Maybe you have been exposed to such a big thing and you've been all this place, so you feel like if I leave and start small, I'll have to start so small. Starting small does not mean you are small. It just means that you are now taking power and putting it in the seed and putting the seed in the soil and committing that soil to grow. And if you start, you're better off than somebody who has not started or is planning to start. So it's all going to be a matter of you're not as weak as you think you are, and starting is the best way to get to an end. So start today. You don't need to wait for tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Oof. I hope somebody heard that. That was a word. That was a mood. Yeah, you spoke to him this morning. Your social media handles, how people can get a hold of you.
Welly Odendo, that's W-E-L-L-Y, Welly Odendo. To get in touch with us for now, it's 0720 536247.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody was brought into this earth to be a slave.
Preach.
Come on now. Thank you so much for watching. It's been very inspirational this Monday with Welly Odendo.